Hope you're doing good. Let's continue refactoring Futurecam. Let's look at this error. There are 25 errors. We will look at this one that says alternate form of. So basically what was going on here was you had a segmented control, which is this UI element. You see how it looks? With two segments or three, and you can select any of them. That's a segmented control in iOS. This segmented control had a few segments, and each of the segment could be presented in different logical forms. So in some you would have a choice of BGRA and something else. In another you would have the choice of HEEC. But HEEC is equivalent to BGRA for our purposes. So we wanted to have a segmented control that handles this and doesn't show duplicates. So the base iOS segmented control class is pretty dumb. You can have any number of segments. You can use the same segment title multiple times, which logically doesn't make sense, like the user will be confused to choose between something and the same thing again. But unfortunately or fortunately, that's how iOS works. So we have defined this extension to make it more convenient to use. So it has a selected title, which the iOS segmented control doesn't have. So when you get, it asks it for the index, then it asks for the title for that segment. So it's like a two-step process. So the iOS one uses a selected index. The reason it uses an index is that the titles can be duplicate. Again, like I said, that doesn't make sense, but that's how it's designed. So because it uses an index, and for us it's more convenient to deal with strings, we have this accessor that uses the index and then maps it to a string and returns a string. So if you have a segmented control, you can do control dot selected, what did I call it, title. Right, so if you have a control that has three options, right, let's say BGRA and raw, two options for now. This might return, and if this is selected, it will return raw. And you can also assign this to select one of them. If you want to select BGRA, you can do this. How does that work? It finds the index with the given title, and then it sets that as the current index. It also has a remove segment function, which searches a segmented control for the index with this title and then removes that. And sometimes if you remove one of them, none of them may be selected. In that case, the selected segment index is -1. This again doesn't make sense from a UI perspective. So if that happens, we set it to 0 to ensure that the first one is selected instead of nothing being selected. Similarly, we have an add segment, which ensures that if that title already exists, we return, we don't add a duplicate, and if not, we insert it. So this is this class. Now this alternate form of we had removed earlier because we no longer needed it. When I say earlier, I mean to say as part of this refactoring videos in an earlier video, because we simplified it. Just as you don't know what BGRA means, users didn't know, even power users, even us, as we were testing the app. We didn't have a clear mental model of, oh, in this case we need to use this, in that case we need to use this, we need to use that. So the thing is, giving options to the users helps only if the users know when to use what. And this is something you will find in poorly designed software, often open source software. They'll give you a million options and you don't know what is what. You don't know what to use. So it doesn't actually help in that case. It confuses users. It only increases the risk of the wrong option being chosen. And then sometimes some of these developers who don't understand UX say, see, it's your fault. But it doesn't help. The user is never at fault. I mean, he might be in some cases, but not here, right? So anyway, so just giving options doesn't achieve anything. It could have a negative value. So that is why we removed these. And now this thing about alternate form is no longer required. And this needs a comment. Actually, it does have a comment. So this again handles removing something that is not there, whereas the iOS one doesn't handle it. I thought I configured these, but Xcode reset my settings. Sorry for doing this now, but it will make the video go smoother. Okay, this page guide helps maintain your line length. If you have a line length in your project, be it 100 or 80 or whatever, use this. This comment is no longer valid because alternate forms are no longer there. Now it just says adds the given segment, which is redundant given the name. Like, of course it will add the segment. What else can it do? Oh, iOS doesn't even have this. We had to implement it ourselves by iterating and checking the title for each. So you can see what a primitive API this is. It's not designed to be usable. That's why we fixed it. So sometimes you'll find system classes which don't have a usable API. Don't hesitate to fix them by adding an extension or a wrapper or a subclass if your language doesn't have extensions. So design should both be top down, where you identify the high level abstractions in your problem, like a light rail video in this app, or a package in a vacation booking app where you buy a package, travel app. So you should have these high level abstractions, which is top down design. You should also do bottom up design, where you take the atoms that are given to you and make molecules out of them, and then use the molecules in your chemical reactions. This comment is no longer relevant because we have a class comment. We'll figure out where to put it. Just a second. Makes a segmented control easier to use and prevents some situations that might arise with a that might otherwise arise. Duplicate segments and none of the segments being selected. That's what this does at a high level. If the selected title isn't present as an option, add it first. When a comment describes the line after it, I prefer to put a colon to make it clear that it's applying to the next line, not the previous line. This is redundant, we are just adding it, so we don't need to check that it exists. Don't write redundant code. One is when you have these branches, it makes it harder to read, and this is dead code, it never executes at runtime, and dead code is a bad programming practice. It can have bugs. Tomorrow somebody can change it to execute, or you may depend on this being executed, right? Don't write dead code. Now this is type unsafe, but it's okay, it won't happen at runtime. So don't be a type safety Nazi. Type safety is good, but it's not an end to itself. Sometimes you have to trade that off against having dead code. And now that you have this local variable which is used only once, you can do this. See how simple this has become? If you look at this and this, compare this with just a simple assignment, right? If it is selected, remove it. Sorry, if it exists, remove it. If the selected one was removed, that's what happens here. The selected segment was removed, so nothing is selected. Sorry, I kicked the camera. In add segment, yep, this should be good. We are down from 25 to 24 errors. Okay, there are more, but then I enabled the continue building after error, so there must be errors in other files. At least this is fixed. Let's commit it. This is shorter. You just want to give a high level summary here, not like write a whole essay. See, this gets into details. I don't know or care what video is. This is logical. If the selected title isn't present, like how can you select an option that isn't there? So add it. Again, this comment became shorter because this part is no longer relevant and this part is in the comment at the top of the file, and this has a comment because when I read this I had to stop and think for a second. Even though I am the person who wrote the code, somebody else may not even understand it, so always good to pay attention to what is going on in your mind. These things are like bumps in a road. Do the bumps stop you on your way? No, but they make your journey unpleasant, right? So as you're driving, whenever you see a bump, you need to smoothen the bump by adding a comment or changing the code or whatever it is. Again, don't, so again, in some companies, we have a style guide saying that every function must have a comment, and people kind of enforce it in a mindless manner. So in code review, they'll say this function, and I used to be that guy, right? So everything I criticize, I used to make the same mistakes or worse earlier. So none of this is coming from a superiority complex. But in code reviews, people say this function does not have a comment, please give a comment, which is well intentioned, but when you apply it mindlessly, it hurts. You'll have dumb documentation like adds the segment. Okay. Fix compiler error in segmented control extension. If you are sure your commit is good, push it immediately, like assuming it passes tests and compiles and whatever, right? Because otherwise there can be merge conflicts which create more work for everyone later on. This is called continuous integration. People think of CI as a tool, but CI is a practice. The practice is there is a master and everyone integrates their work into the master, and that should happen continuously. It's not like once in a while you integrate. So merging is called integration. Okay, let's see what else we can do. Let's hide all these irrelevant things. This is again poor ordering. The error should come first. A short UX critique of Xcode. Hey, where are the errors? Oh, it's in Futurecam. Oh, this is the thing I should have. Computed property must have an X. Okay, we'll fix that. That's it, eh? The fact that I'm leaning over tells me to increase the font size for the next video. I'll do that. Just to be sure, we'll do a clean and then a build. Yeah, I think this is good. The only thing that remains is the mode stuff, and yeah, this is one change we want to make. This is what we'll be working on in the next video. So since this will take time, let's do it in the next video rather than rushing it through here. Alright guys, see you in the next video.